There's not a one of us in this room that tomorrow couldn't wake up an amputee. I don't feel I had a hard heart before my accident, but I have a lot more empathy and compassion today because I haven't walked in anyone else's shoes. So I do not judge anybody.
Welcome to another episode of Relentlessly Resilient, presented by Minky Couture, a weekly podcast where people share real-life experiences and the tools they've developed to move forward and live their best lives. I'm Jennie Taylor.
And I'm Michelle Scharf. Oh, the days are starting to get a little bit cool around here.
Here comes fall.
So excited. You know, I honestly sleep with a Minky Couture blanket every night. My hug blanket, for some reason, helps enough heat escapes.
There's almost a magic about the hug, the way it really does hug you. I don't know what it is.
I don't sleep with any other blanket. I sleep with my hug blanket at night. I love it. It's cooling and warming at the same time. I don't know how it works. It is magical. However, it's getting into fall, and I can't wait to get out my Minky luxury design.
Those ones are beautiful and amazing. And so probably too much for the summer. They're perfect for the cold nights.
So soft, but they have a weight to them, and they're so snuggly and plush. We want to have a special thanks to our Minky Couture sponsor and just let everyone know it's fall. It's a great time for gifts. It's a great time for presents are coming up. Go and get your Minky Couture blanket. You can visit them anywhere along the Wasatch Front. They have 6 locations. They have an outlet in Ogden, and you can buy them wherever you are online at minkycouture.com.
And here we are today with a guest in studio. Oftentimes we do this over the phone, and our guest might be here in Utah or elsewhere in the country and world. But today we're all right here in Salt Lake City, and we've got Jeff Soelberg to share his story and inspire us with his thoughts on resilience and just whatever you've got to offer for us. So thanks, Jeff, for coming to the studio today.
Thank you, ladies, for having me.
Excited to have you.
Actually, my story started just a few blocks north of here.
Oh, wow.
At the refinery.
Okay.
And a little over 8 years ago, I machinist there, and my glove got caught in the machine and pulled 3 fingers off.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was quite the day at the office at that point in time.
Oh, my gosh. That had to be terrifying. Number one, the pain level of that, I can't imagine. I mean, you stub a toe, it hurts really, really bad. What is that like, getting your fingers ripped off from a machine?
Yeah, I said some choice words.
Totally appropriate.
Had a nice fountain coming out the end of my hand.
That's what I was thinking. The blood loss. Did you regain consciousness? I mean, did you maintain consciousness? Or that's a lot of blood.
Yes, a little side note is I'm a ski patrolman.
Okay.
And so I deal with accidents. And also we have a on-site clinic there at the refinery with a PA and nurse on site. And so at the time of the accident, I backed up for a second, applied pressure, called to a co-worker to
I was just going to ask you, was anyone around? Because those refineries are huge, and sometimes you're working alone.
Yeah.
And it's loud to be able to call physically for help.
We have a crew rescue team, and he called, notified rescue, and within my training and stuff, you know, I applied the pressure, stopped the blood flow, started thinking, and rescue team are co-workers doing their tasks, so it could be 5-10 minutes for someone to get to me. And I was about 100 yards from the clinic. That coworker walks up to me, and at the time, you know, they talk about how things are going 1,000 miles an hour, yet slow speed, and it was so surreal in the sense that I released my hand for a second. I knew my fingers were gone, but I was sitting there moving my hand, trying to analyze things.
Because it doesn't make sense to your brain, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of a little bit liken this to like death. You hear somebody you love died, and the first thing is, what? No, tell me about that again. Because it's almost like your brain can't accept. It's like it knows certain things are true. And it's like, I have 5 fingers. And it's almost like that moment where you're like, wait, did I just lose 3 fingers?
Yeah, it was so weird in the sense that I knew they were gone, but I wasn't like searching for them. The fight or flight. And he walked up to me. I looked at him and I said, walk with me. Because I didn't know if I was going to walk into the clinic, but each step I was one step closer to the clinic. And I walked in, at which time the nurse started freaking out and takes me over to the sink and starts trying to wash things off. And I looked at her and I told her to get every bit of gauze they had in the room and start packing and wrapping. There's nothing she's going to do there.
Right.
We got to stop the blood flow. We get it stopped. I looked at her. I said, okay, now give me some oxygen. And I sat down and waited for the ambulance.
Now,
and
that's your
paramedics.
background.
Yeah.
Because ski patrol, I mean, you see a lot of stuff up there. That is
You're
your
telling
training.
the nurse how to treat you.
Yeah. That
I
is
think
insane.
I'd be in such a disarray. I don't know that I'd remember my own name.
Yeah.
For you to kind of have that state of mind to say very logically, this needs to happen, this needs to happen, this needs to happen.
I can't imagine the amount of blood loss and that you're still conscious.
That's what I'm thinking.
Almost thank God you were, though, because it didn't seem like they were on the ball with what needed to happen.
And my boss comes in, and he made the statement that all we had to do is follow the blood trail.
Oh, yeah. I can only imagine.
Now it gets a little bit better.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you like the show?
For all of our listeners,
Yeah.
I hope that you've stayed and made it this far. Sorry for the... and I'm so curious. I have to ask the questions that, I just have to.
Hey, it's perfectly fine, and you don't know all these details, but my boss asked me who I want him to call, of which I hand him my phone and say, call my wife, Holly, of which the other side of the story is we were 6 months into a new marriage.
Oh.
And she gets the call, she hangs up, and she had lived up in Idaho for years. She turns to a coworker and asks where the U of U hospital is.
Oh, no.
So the paramedics show up, they cut my coveralls off, stick me with an IV, and are loading me in the ambulance. And, well, they're sticking me with the IV as we're rolling out the gate. And then the paramedic gives me a painkiller. And again, I hand him my phone and ask him to call my oldest son. And it went to voicemail. He left a message for my older son. And got to the hospital about 3:30 in the afternoon and went through all this testing and stuff, but did not go into surgery till 11:30 that night.
So what time?
11:30.
But
There's good points
okay,
and
hold
bad
on.
points.
But when did this accident happen?
The accident about 2:45.
It's almost been 12 hours.
Oh, my gosh.
Say, how are they stopping the bleeding? Back to the bleeding. I'm back to the bleeding.
I know. We're all a mess here. Jeff, you got to give us all the details.
Okay, so yes, my fingers went with me, of which...
Were they still in the glove?
They took them out of the glove,
Okay.
but when it pulled my fingers off, it pulled tendons clear from my elbow.
Oh, stop. Okay, this is a lot. Did they think, or did you think for a moment there was a chance of reattachment?
No, and one thing that I didn't say, so it took my index finger from the knuckle, my middle finger, one joint out, and my ring finger, one joint out from there. But everything was degloved back to the knuckles.
The hand.
So at that time when I was analyzing things, I had 2 bright white chicken bones I was looking at. And
that has to be terrifying.
Again, how did you maintain consciousness? Forget the blood. I would have just passed out from the sight of it.
I would have
been, this is too much.
I don't think I could have called for anyone. I think I would have just been flat on the floor.
Several coworkers say, yeah, they were ready to pass out just seeing me. But the doctors were honest with me at the time. They go, we're going to try and save as much as possible, but you most likely will not end up with what you have at this point in time. To date, I've had 9 surgeries, 2 revisions. You got to watch out for doctors. Most of the scars on me are doctor made.
Yeah.
Because my hand went in up to my wrist. And is like I stuck my hand in a blender where it tore everything loose. And so for 12 weeks, I had 10 pins, a plate, and half dozen screws holding my hand together. So I've had 3 skin grafts. They split my arm open to try and get as much blood flow to what was left of my hand. And went back in 5 days later and tried to close things up, and it was still so swollen that they had to graft some more skin to close things up.
Wow. But that was the first attempt at closing things up. They didn't take all 3 of your fingers at that time, right? Is that
no?
Because they were trying to preserve at least maybe those 2 other fingers, the ring finger and the middle finger.
I went through 8 months of physical therapy, and I was at one of the department stores getting a pair of pants one day. And, as you're putting your pants on, you're bringing your hand from the side to the front, and you're sliding along the denim. All of a sudden, I look down, and there's blood all over the floor. I got friction burn just from that slight.
From the fabric.
Yeah, because all I had was skin over bone, and I'd get these friction burns, and it'd take 8, 10, 12 weeks for them to heal up.
To heal back again.
And
which is, we use our hands all the time.
All the time. Especially, are you right hand? It's your right hand that's injured, and that's your dominant hand.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. So for our listeners that are not in studio with us, you did end up losing all 3 of your fingers. We are looking at your prosthetic. Clearly, you have 3 prosthetic fingers. So after your journey, 9 surgeries, over what span of time were those surgeries?
Total 5 years. So I've had 2 revision surgeries over that time. So 8 months in, I went to meet with a prosthetist to see about getting prosthesis. And at that time, my prosthetist discussed with me about having the first revision, taking my middle finger back to the knuckle and taking part of my ring finger back, but they didn't want to get rid of it completely. So if I wasn't wearing a prosthetic, I could reach from my thumb to my ring finger for pinch grip. That's your number one grip, your thumb index, unless you're missing fingers.
Right.
And so that was my first revision. I got 2 prosthetics. This is my everyday working hand, and then I have a myoelectric also. Turns me into a cyborg.
Very cool.
I got 2 prosthetics. This is my everyday working hand, and then I have a myoelectric also. Turns me into a cyborg.
Very cool.
And I had that for 5 years. And, within any trauma, we go through stages. We don't all go through the same stages in the same order or anything. And part of mine was being the husband, the father, the breadwinner, seeing what I could still do.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. You're
Livelihood.
6 months into a brand new marriage. I'm sure she was like, this is not what I bargained for. We want our men to be providers and a bit of security, right? I mean, that is the natural order of the masculine and feminine energies. Yeah. What is it doing to you mentally?
Very stressful. So back to while I was laying in the hospital bed, I never had any amputees come up, tell me what life was going to be like. And so I start YouTubing and stuff, and I came across a CrossFit competition that's held back in Baltimore, and it's called the Working Wounded Games.
Oh, very cool.
And it is the most inspiring thing you've ever been to. When you have an individual that has no legs, that's putting every ounce of effort into throwing a sandbag up and over a pull-up bar. And I turned to my wife and I go, I want to go there. I want to see this. And a year later, I was there. I was competing.
What did you compete in?
It's CrossFit competition. So we all do the same things, but on the adaptive side, they adapt the activity to whatever level we are. And
so when I think of CrossFit, I'm thinking of kind of like high intensity training, that burpees, jumping up and down, hanging from a bar, all the things.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done several.
Now I feel like I don't have an excuse to not get my butt out to the gym.
One-handed, how do you do that one-handed? How do you adapt?
Well, he's got bionic arms.
That has a 30-pound weight limit, too. That's why
you cannot carry yourself with that prosthesis.
I was thinking, well, he said he was bionic.
Okay, for one arm, for a pull-up, we'll hang by one arm and do toe raises, toe to bars.
Oh.
So activities like that, we modify everything. And it's like I've gone through their instructor training, and it's doing wall balls. I've done them over and over, and you get a rhythm and stuff. And in the instructor training, they put me in the position of being paralyzed. So you're sitting on your butt on the floor with this wall ball, and you got to try and get it 6 feet in the air. And I put every ounce of effort into it. Before I can react, that wall ball hits me in the face. And you don't have hip function if you're paralyzed.
Right.
And stuff, which creates things. So, no matter what our challenge is, we got to have empathy for everybody. Like you ladies, I don't know what it is to lose a spouse and stuff. I lost limbs, but probably similar
Like
in
you
the
said, we
sense.
all go through that journey of stages of grief that don't match each other. They're not linear, and you don't only visit each one once.
Yeah.
But we all have that loss. You've lost mobility.
Yeah. I do a lot of peer support around the world, and within that, I live with pain 24/7. So I have a pain management doctor and trauma psychologist. And my first one got me through the trauma of the event. And after about a year, said, okay, you're healed. You're good to go. And again, our hands are our most used limb on our body. We do everything other than walk around unless you're walking on your hands, of which CrossFitters do. But I don't have touch sensation with my prosthesis. And so anytime I'm doing something with that hand, I'm looking at it to make sure I got a good grip of whatever I'm trying to hold and such. And so we're hardest on ourselves, and being my dominant hand, I'll reach for a doorknob. And if it's an older door, that knob's a little tight, I can't turn it. So we beat up on ourselves. When you learn to use the hand, they'll open up the door, and those little things build up over time. And I learned that you'll have the stupidest little thing, the yappy dog next door, the guy cuts you off driving home, and you have the meltdowns. Through trauma and stuff, I have PTSD. And so I still to this day meet with a trauma counselor twice a month, because I've found that I call them brain dumps, just unloading everything, I stay even keeled. Where if you go and then stop and go and stop, who knows what the time frame is, 3, 6, 9 months, a year down the road, and you just have that major meltdown. It's unacceptable. Even though we've been through trauma, we still have to take responsibility for ourselves and our actions and relationships.
Right. We cannot sometimes change the trauma or the situation that happened, but our responses to it, we can. And we are responsible for allowing our emotions to build up, to not be self-regulated, to not be kind to others. This was actually the entire premise that I had the inspiration for the show. I was having an ugly cry at a stoplight. I've shared this story before. I'm going to abbreviate it even shorter right now. But and I looked in all of the cars, which you never do. You never look at everyone. When you're driving, whoever, you don't think about it, right? You're busy thinking about your life and where you're going. And I'm crying, and I'm ugly crying, and I'm embarrassed. And I just happen to look up, and I start looking at other people in their cars. And I realize we are all dealing with a lot.
Yeah.
We all are.
Yeah.
And nobody cares about what's happening to me right now. And even if they did, they might be able to relate. And it started giving me space and room. But I also recalled all the times that I didn't give space and room to others. I also got cut off on the freeway one time during my husband's cancer process. And I thought if they only knew what was happening right now, they would have been a little bit patient. And I thought, well, I haven't been patient at times. It's changed me as a person. It has shaped the way I live my life. And I think it's admirable that you realize and that you recognize that you need a safe space to go and have that conversation and leave it at the door, that you don't need to carry it. It's okay. And that's such a great thing that you're doing for yourself and for, frankly, our community.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole thing is I say I don't feel I had a hard heart before my accident, but I have a lot more empathy and compassion today because I haven't walked in anyone else's shoes. So I do not judge anybody. You know, we're still human, and other people's reactions to stuff, at times I might have to bite my tongue a little bit and step back just because of natural response. But I try to, show empathy for everyone.
We don't know. We say it at the end of every show. We don't know the struggles other people are dealing with in their lives, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And, it even goes to that marriage that I was in, lasted 4 years, but she had her own personal struggles. And I count my blessings every day that she was there for me. The company she worked for let her take 6 weeks off because I wouldn't be where I am today without that.
I did notice when you brought that up that there was some emotion that came up, and I was wondering if we were going to hear if that marriage continued or not.
No. And,
I hear it's very common. People have an injury. Marriages just don't.
It's tough because, the initial injury and stuff for months, I was just trying to maintain my full-time job of managing my recovery, which
You're just trying to survive.
Yeah, I was going to the U of U 2 to 3 times a week to their hand clinic, of which I lived in Clinton at the time, so about 45 minutes to get me there. Be there for a few hours, then 45 minutes
That's your day.
home. It was a day, yeah.
And plus the emotional and the physical exhaustion of that day.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Right.
Depending upon our challenges, physical challenges, anytime you have any physical challenge, it takes more out of you to do stuff, of which you ladies have the challenge of losing spouses and the mental stress of that takes.
And just the everyday, day-to-day things, I will agree with that. When you've gone through tragedy, trauma, difficulty, whatever it is, somehow the things you used to do almost on autopilot feel insurmountable. Driving the car, planning the day, making the meals, even getting ready for the day. It's like, I don't remember how to do this because my energy is all focused elsewhere.
Yeah. And with me, like I have to change stuff without having touch sensation and stuff. The way I get dressed is I put my belt through all the loops before I put my pants on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because,
but that's not typically
I can't
how
feel,
we do it with 2 hands, right?
Yeah. Which gets interesting. I travel a lot, speaking and stuff, and TSA, every airport, every day is different.
Yeah.
Which is so true and so annoying if it's a federal agency. I've said that so many times.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're going to call yourself federal, then have some consistency.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's been a few times, I don't take my belt off.
Because it's quite a chore.
Exactly. And it's come to the point, I've been through so much. I'm not a flasher or anything like that, but, things happen. And I was in LaGuardia flying home last December, and this TSA agents just tell me I got to take my belt off. And I'm like, no, look at my hand. You've swabbed down my hand. I'm not a bomb maker. My belt's not coming off. And after that experience, I'm sitting there, I'll drop my pants right there. You want this belt off?
Right.
This is how I take it off.
Right. It's so amazing. I mentioned to you, my boyfriend's in a wheelchair. TSA is a horrible experience, in my opinion. He's fine with it. He's accustomed to it. I think it's ridiculous what they swab those entire chairs. It is a process, and It's a titanium frame. You can see what's there.
That's what my fingers are.
Yeah.
Titanium.
Yeah. So crazy. There's so many things that you do, challenges that we as able-bodied people just don't have to experience. And, I'm sure that there's level of people with disabilities that think, oh, well, you lost 3 fingers, but look, you have 3 fingers. You have a prosthetic, right?
Yes. And so whether it's called our animal instinct or what, but everything we associate goes off of size. And
yeah, you see the curiosity. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Okay.
We go off of size.
So,
okay, tell me this.
Size. I've had 3 impairment ratings done to me to date, and it's physical impairment. And they rate hand, arm, upper body, lower body. And so on a hand, your thumb is 40% of your hand. Your index finger is 20%. Middle finger's 20%. Ring finger's 10%. Pinky is 10%. Now on the total body side of things, your arm is 60% total body impairment. A leg is 40%. So we go back to my impairment being index, middle, and ring finger with some damage to my wrist and such. Total body impairment, I am 38%, 5% off of a total leg amputation.
Wow.
And a friend of mine that's a prosthetist used the example that we use our legs to get us around. We use our hands to do everything else.
To do everything. I once broke my left pinky. It's the only bone I've ever broken. I was 30-something. And I cannot believe how handicapped I felt without the full use of my left pinky. I am right-handed, and I never knew how important my pinky was for functionality. And to this day, on certain storms or things, it'll kind of bother me. And sometimes it seizes up, and I think it's itty bitty. I didn't think I needed the thing. It's my left little pinky. And I can't imagine dominant hand, dominant fingers, several of them, to say nothing of the pain associated, but just the usability, the functionality of that.
Yeah. So with that being said, also upper limb amputations, finger partial hands are over 90% of all upper limb amputations.
So say that again.
Over 90%. If it's from the wrist above, that's less than 10% of them out there.
So the wrist
So
below.
far more people are losing fingers than arms.
Yeah.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Do you know the most common injuries why is that occurring?
It can be anything. There's not a one of us in this room that tomorrow couldn't wake up an amputee. Sepsis is a big one nowadays. What spiked the finger partial hands are the razor side-by-sides getting
machinery.
rolled.
Yep.
Machinery, dog bites,
Ooh.
infections. One of my peer calls a few years ago was a surgeon that got a sliver in his finger and was contemplating amputation because he had fought an infection for 9 months.
Oh, wow. That's shocking.
So here we are. We're talking in a podcast that we have named Relentlessly Resilient. You clearly have resilience. You've demonstrated that it probably takes resilience every day. Can you define resilience for us?
Resilience is being able to bounce back, to go with the flow of things, especially whatever your challenge or trauma is, you're adapting. So you got to learn to adapt, and then the resilience is to endure and push through to the end.
Yeah.
Sometimes whether you want to or
Or
not.
not. Yeah. Yep. So it's interesting because that ability to bounce back really gets started in taking action steps before something like this happens, like having a support system. You had a loving wife at the time.
Yeah.
You had a son that you could call and reach out for support. You had a support system there for you at the time of the accident and the weeks after. Those things, I'm sure, were helpful in your ability to find the strength to bounce back.
Yes, they were. But as I want to say, we all know, over time, that changes.
Mm-hmm.
People go back to their lives and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
of which in my realm of things, being partial hand, back to over 90% being limb loss, of that 45,000 a year lose fingers, of which less than 5% will get a prosthetic. So,
Why is that?
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute.
education. Again, going back to size, we do so much reactive without thinking. So people just don't realize, oh, it's only a couple of fingers, no big deal. And at the time of my accident, the company that makes these fingers that I wear wasn't even a company at that time. They formed a few months later, and I am one of the very first recipients. So we got hand surgeons that are great putting us back together, and this is another dysfunction in our system. They put us back together, but they don't deal with the prosthetics. And so they send us to a prosthetist, but in the way the system works, that hand surgeon has to sign the script authorizing the insurance company to pay for the prosthetic.
So part of this is falling maybe through
Cracks.
red tape.
Yeah.
The process, the bureaucracy of it all.
Yes. And so I hear stories of the hand surgeons saying there's nothing available, so I'm not going to sign the script. 2 years ago, I was in London speaking to the International Federation of Hand Surgeons, and there's a group from the U of U that did a survey of hand surgeons across the United States of what they knew about prosthetics. And they lacked big time knowledge and stuff. So with that being said, it's been my mission. I started a foundation, and I am just finishing up a book to educate everybody. Like I said, no one came and visited me in the hospital. I had no clue what life was going to be like. I do peer support calls around the world to new amputees and stuff, and this is just my way of spreading the knowledge. I talk pain management and trauma psychology and multidisciplinary teams. Those are the greatest. I've had to create my own. But then last September, I met a family with a little girl that was born with only 3 fingers. And at the time, we were in Indianapolis, and they had come down to Indianapolis to go to Shriners to meet with her doctor. And the doctor looks at her hand and tells the parents, looks healthy. and sends them out the door. These parents, even the doctors don't have the hard discussions. No game plan for her on what life's going to be like going forward. We met, we connected, and the mother asked me, she goes, what are we to do here? And started talking. We talk frequently and stuff. And literally 2 weeks ago now, the mother sends me a picture of, she actually is missing the same fingers as me. And I call her my amputee granddaughter.
Oh.
And it's the picture, first day of school, of which she's wearing a prosthesis.
Oh.
And, you know, through us talking and stuff, I got them into individuals that can help.
Yeah.
And you could open those avenues that they
That's
might otherwise
awesome.
not have known existed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Where can people find you if they're looking for help, support, or direction to find where they can find a prosthesis?
Jeff Soelberg or Jeff Giving a Hand. You search it, you can find it. I probably have the most famous hand out there.
Okay.
Jeff Giving
All
a
right.
Hand. I love that.
I love that.
I can remember that easier than I can remember how to spell Soelberg. I'm just going to be honest. So when you're telling people where to find things online, it's easier to think, what can I remember? I can remember Jeff Giving a Hand.
Yeah.
Very awesome. Well, thank you for coming in and sharing
Thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in. Again, there's always the invitation. If you have a story to share, we would love to hear it and have you share it with the rest of our listeners. You can email us at rrpodcast@ksl.com or find us on social media for the Relentlessly Resilient podcast. Click on the Calendly link and schedule a call with Michelle to talk through what you might share about your own resilience journey. Thanks to our producer, Kellyanne Halverson, and our presenting sponsor, Minky Couture.
And remember, whatever you do, remember to be kind. You have no idea the struggles others are dealing with in their lives. Have a great day.